Jessica Cox. I teach orchestra at Ayer and Mercer, and then I'm at Naval in the afternoon for general music. And these are some of our Mercer sixth graders. It's a little representation. We're going to play one of the songs that we are playing on our concert on Wednesday. This is Song of Peace. Thank you for having me down.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order this December 15th, 2014 meeting of the Forest Hills Board of Education. Mr. Teffer, if you please call roll.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Here.
Dr. Heiss?
Here.
Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Fruman?
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Safety exits, we have one in the front of the room to my right, your left, one all the way in back, and to the side over here. And before we move on with the motion to adopt the agenda, I want to thank our 6th grade students from Mercer for playing for us before the board meeting this evening. We heard Song of Peace, and playing for us were Hannah Amon, Alyssa Haverstraw, Hannah Hazelwood, William Henkel, and Elizabeth Liu. They've all left, but thank you very much. We really enjoyed it. If I can have a motion to adopt the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mrs. Bissinger.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Dr. Heiss.
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn.
Yes.
Mr. Fruman.
Yes. Item 3.1, approval of the minutes for the Board Policy Committee meeting on November 13th, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger.
Yes.
Dr. Heiss.
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn.
Yes.
Mr. Fruman.
Yes. And item 3.2 is the approval of minutes from the our previous regular scheduled meeting on November 24th, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger.
Yes.
Dr. Heiss.
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn.
Yes.
Mr. Fruman.
Yes. Item 4.1, correspondence. Dr. Jackson?
Yes, Mr. Fruman and Board of Education, I have a couple pieces of correspondence I'd like to share. First of all, received great news that students, high school students Emma Bird from Anderson High School as well as Maria Cornichian from Turpin High School have been selected to present a breakout session at the Future Educators Association National Conference in Washington, D.C. It's in this April. Both girls participated in our student exchange in Taiwan and over the summer, and their national presentation will focus on the study abroad opportunities and encouraging others to participate. So both girls are members of our district's Teachers Academy, so I just wanted to shoot that out there. I mean, it was a great piece of correspondence that we received. I would also, during this holiday season, all of our schools do so much for our community and for a lot of different organizations. And I was a little bit hesitant just to mention a couple, but I thought there were a couple of things that, again, without leaving anybody behind, but at the same time, the Beach Acres and Target on Beachmont sent us correspondence and thanked us and the school district for participation in their Shop and Share program. Forest Hills Parents coordinated the Shop and Share, and it's kind of an annual event now to help local families in need during our holiday season. Our students, then they do chores and other activities and around the area to help get some donations. And then they go to Target on Beachmont, and I had the opportunity to go watch them, and it was really great to shop for families in need. This year, students from Nagel, Wilson Summit, and our administrative office is also collected for the donation and collected over $10,000 in support of over 190, almost 200 families at Beach Acres. On top of that, our parents also donated an additional $10,000. So we collected and they shopped for over $10,000 worth of merchandise to give to needy families in our community, which is phenomenal. And as I said, so many of our buildings and so many of our schools do so many things, and I hate to not say that and leave those out, because I know they do with food drives and those types of collections as well. On that same note, though, we are also, the Drop-In Center in downtown Cincinnati also sent us a thank you note for fourth graders at Sherwood Elementary for assembling and donating snacks for the homeless this year as well. It's just phenomenal, the things that goes on across the district that our kids have an opportunity to participate in, and the giving from our community and our family. So with that, those are the three pieces of correspondence that I shared tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tepfer? Any board members? No? Item 4.2, procedures for public commentary. As everybody knows, this is not a public meeting, but is a meeting held in public. We welcome comments from our community. If you care to make any, please fill out a green card and we'll call on you at the appropriate time in the meeting. Item 5.1, election of the President Pro Tem for the organizational meeting, which will be held on January 5th, 2015 at 7 a.m. in this room. And just so we remember, all the other board meetings in 2015 will be held over at the Anderson Center, the only one, I believe the only one, Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, that is to be held here in 2015 is that organizational meeting on January 5th.
I move the election of Jim Fruman as President Pro Tem for the organizational meeting of the Forest Hills School District Board of Education on January 5th.
Second.
Mr. Teffer?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes. Board discussion, item 5.2. Any discussion this evening?
I don't have discussion, but I just wanted to recognize former Turpin principal Larry Borcherding passed away last week, and his celebration of life was this weekend. He was the principal at Turpin for 5 years, I believe, in the mid to late 90s. So that was a great service. I was there, and it was a full house, and so I just wanted to mention that for everybody. He did a great job over there.
Thank you, Tony. Item 6.1, public comments. I don't have any green cards up here. Do we have any this evening? Last call? No? All right. 7.1, district updates. Dr. Jackson?
Yes, I'd like to ask John Eckert to come to the podium and speak and share a little bit about our public safety efforts that we've been doing this year. And John?
Thank you, sir. When Dr. Jackson asked me to put together a quick presentation for the board, I was trying to figure out what we could talk about because there is so much to talk about. But what I wanted to talk about is we're really talking about an emergency management system. We hear about the plan that we have to submit up to the state and everything, and we are in compliance with that. So, but when we look at the emergency management system and the, go ahead. There are 5 components of the system that we need. We need prevention, mitigation, protection, response, and recovery. Okay? And if you notice, this graphic actually has a purpose to it. You know the gradient colors as we go through. There is no one pure set action that takes place at any one time. But our whole system has to come into play so we can do what is best for our students and our community and our school system as a whole. So let me sort of break these pieces down for you. Okay? In prevention, various things that we're doing. Like I said, we developed the plans. The state of Ohio has mandated that every school board or school system have approved by the superintendent emergency management plans for all buildings under their control. The team has gotten together, revised those plans, and actually they were all submitted to the state actually today. So we will be in compliance with all the state. That includes floor plans and all the processes that we go through in a crisis situation. There's a great deal of collaboration if we're going to have a true emergency management system. We have to have collaboration within the district, between the buildings and the central office, but the collaboration that we're also getting through the community. We're working very well with some community partners for some various aspects of the safety system. We are working with very integrally with Anderson Fire and Rescue and Hamilton County Sheriff's Department. We've already had, I think, 4 collaboration meetings where we're working on a lot of really neat stuff that we'll hit here in a little bit. Okay? And mitigation, as we know, we try to, we prep, we plan, but we also want to understand if a crisis happens that our whole goal is to mitigate the loss or mitigate the damages. And there's programs in place that were helping us with that. The working with the 4 developmental assets is a mitigation practice that it will help the students be able to cope better with instances, maybe it's a bullying incident or any of that thing, and make the proper choices. And we're doing that through different things like PBIS, responsive classroom, and a variety of things, but working the 40 developmental assets. We have to have a system of quick response, regardless of what it is. Whether it is a building level crisis, a water main break, a bus accident, which we've already had, with the quick response. And then one thing that we're working very hard on is a unified command integration. In other words, all the entities that will come together in a crisis situation, can we all speak the same language? And that's probably one of the toughest things to break, because As educators, we speak education. Police speak police, and fire speaks fire. And they don't make qualms about that. There are different systems. But the meetings that we've been having have been working very well to work a unified command, work a unified vocabulary, so when these situations happen, we can move effectively through as much as we can. Then we go into the protection. Physical facilities. This is where, with some of the bond issue, that we are be able to make some very positive upgrades to our physical facilities, be it security vegetables, sorry, security vestibules, big words, increased cameras, just better engineering and design of the buildings that will allow us to have better facilities and provide more protection. And we continually educate. I think one thing that a lot of people think when you come up with an emergency management system or a plan is you've got the binder, you've got it set, you're set. No, you're not. We have to continually educate. We have to continually look at how can we do these things better. How can we take care of our kids through the 4 developmental assets? How can we take care of our kids in situations where there may be some cyberbullying or social media challenges? That is all part of our safety management system. And then what happens when something goes bad? Okay, I'm positive the board has had quite a amount of information on Alice, so I'm not going to go into that. But the next part was, the next 2 pieces are, how do we make sure we account for all the students in a crisis situation, and how do we get the information to all the parties that need to? You see, Navigate Prepare. This is a system that will truly enhance operations and crisis management with fire department and police department and school system. It is a system that will turn electronic all our safety plans, all our floor plans, and make everything immediately accessible to the first responders. And that's going to include live media feeds inside the buildings. This is a huge, Officer Gecki was on a team. I had a team of people from the fire department, police department, sit down, look through this product with some examples. Dr. Jackson had the opportunity to meet with this vendor up at the Ohio School Boards Association. Mariemont City Schools has adopted it, and that's actually how it came on my radar. Corporal Boyman from Hamilton County Sheriff's Department, who's on the mass incident preparation team that we're working with, is a father in Mariemont schools. And he has seen the system put into play and was very impressed with it and suggested that we take a look at it.
When you say turn electronic, can you help me a little bit
Okay.
more? Or are you going to get into that?
Well, no,
Okay.
that's a great question, because this is an hour-long presentation within itself that I'm going to try. Right now, we have safety binders. Ms. Brillport will be making copies of the binders that we submitted today up to the state, and then we will deliver a binder to the fire department, deliver a binder to the sheriff's department. Right now, that's all the sheriff's department has, or fire department has, is a paper binder. What this will do, we will take all our documents, and it will become a secured web-based interface where they will actually pull up the safety plans, pull up the maps as they go. The editing, the capabilities, the amount of it's, one thing, there's this little video we're going to show you, because this is enacted in the state of Ohio in various counties. But just for pure fact, we will have detailed 360 photographs of every space inside of a building. So when the fire department's going into the boiler rooms to shut stuff off, they will actually have a picture of that valve exactly where it is, so they're not wandering, they know it's somewhere on that wall. various things like that. So there's a lot to this. But how this will integrate very quickly, once a 911 call is put on, the Sheriff's Department has control through the comm center of all of our items. And there's a real quick, like, minute-long video that sort of shows this quote-unquote in action.
That's what the Navigate?
Yes, that is the
Okay.
Navigate Prepare. And we'll go back to the other piece. So if you could pull up the video of the...
Let's try this.
911, what is your emergency?
When a 911 call comes from a school, law enforcement is immediately dispatched. A secondary dispatcher locates the facility.
Pause this for a second. I'll be the narrator. What happened is 911 call came across, and it says, 911, what's your emergency? Now, immediately, they know the call came from the school system. So this map is going to pop up on the screen of the dispatcher, the county dispatcher. And then, in this case, she will click on the screen, and it will pull up more maps. Okay, go ahead. Hit play again. Do you think you got the audio?
911, what is your emergency?
When a 911 call comes from a school, law enforcement is immediately dispatched. A secondary dispatcher locates the facility, clicks a link that opens directly to Navigate Prepared, and within seconds, the school's call list, emergency operation plans, and maps are accessible. The dispatcher quickly selects the school's specific floor plan to see the location of all cameras in the school and selects the corresponding set of live video feeds related to the incident. Drilling into a specific video feed, the dispatcher monitors and gives real-time information to law enforcement en route. As law enforcement arrives onto the scene, they have been completely informed on what is happening inside the school, knowing exactly where to go.
Quick informational video. Officer Gaffey, not to throw you under the bus, but is that not something that you guys were
Huge. Huge. That it would be so huge responding. If we can go then immediately, we know immediately where we can go, and that's just huge as part of our response now to an active shooter or an active aggressor, whichever term you want to use. So, this is huge.
Who sets it all up?
Okay. I, along with my team, will be working with the vendors to get everything digitized and create that. We're already working on a schedule of this company coming in to work on the video feeds and those things.
Do they only have access to the video after a 911 call has been initiated, or do they have it 24/7?
They will have access. We grant access. So we would grant the police and fire access at any time. Yes. So, so that is part of our response piece. You know, a huge part of our response piece, so we can move forward. And then the other part, the final piece, if there is such a thing as a final piece of emergency management system, is the recovery. How can we get everything back to normal as quick as possible? We want to bring normalcy to the students, whether it's an event of, you know, a snow emergency is something that changes. We want to get the kids back on track again. But if it is a crisis situation, something our team is working on very heavily is the reunification process. We'll share one little story with you and why this is very important to us and that we need to move forward. I took a team up to Columbus for a seminar, and I think I talked to Ms. Bissinger about this. One of the speakers was a mother from Sandy Hook, and the mother was of one of the children who did not make it, who passed away. And the woman, how she could speak was beyond me, but she spoke, and she was very complimentary of the school system, very complimentary of fire and police. But the only problem that happened is got all the students out. They got them where they needed to be. They actually, there's a firehouse close, and the fire base got filled up with students. But at that point, no one knew what to do with them. And she actually sort of learned how her child died through social media, because someone came up and apologized. They did not know how to continue the situation. And that's something that's hurting all over the nation that we are lacking in. So that's another very strong thing that our team is really working on, to develop a unification process that obviously in hopes we never need, but if it does, again, we want to mitigate as much of the damage as possible and get our kids back to a normal situation and our families back. So that is, and then you end with refine and review, always constantly. So hopefully that wasn't too long, but hopefully it gave you some good information. If you have any questions off the top of your head that anyone would like?
How long does it take to implement?
Talking with, for the Navigate Prepared, I'm assuming, talking with Mariemont, the company we're hoping to have on board the first of the year. They'll be on campus minimum 8 days working with that. And then it's uploading, tweaking. So the gentleman from Mr. Hollander from Mariemont told me we could probably take about 2 months to get it up and running. But there'll be some tweaks along the way.
And as our facilities are being renovated, we'll have to continually update
Correct.
the plan as well.
Correct. And we would have to do that regardless of Navigate Prepared. Anytime we have any main structural change to anything, we have to update our safety plans and resubmit to the state. But also through Navigate, we have discussed that, and they understand that that is a concern that we have, and we've worked through that.
I assume we can leverage their expertise as we develop our enhanced security, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
I mean, the timing, I guess you'd say, is perfect for this.
I would agree. And this, just so you understand, this isn't a sales presentation on Navigate, but this is, K-12 is a calling they have. They've been doing this for large institutions, large medical centers, universities for a long time. But they've now made it affordable for the K-12 scenario because they just feel it's something their company has to do.
What kind of costs are associated? Do you know yet?
Very reasonably priced.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, the program itself is reasonably priced. It's the things that go with that, as we talked about during the bond committee, or bond issue, and our coffees that spoke about. Having this available is phenomenal. If you think about a first responder coming on a 911 call, with nothing other than a 911 call, they know they're coming to a situation. They know a little bit about the situation. But in this case, they'll have more firsthand knowledge. If there is an intruder, if there's a fire, if there whatever, we'll know where it is in the building. They'll be able to have a video feed, assuming those videos are still up, which they should be. But they'll be able to have a video feed of exactly what the problem is and what they do to have to mitigate it. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Item 7.2, a facilities update. Dr. Jackson?
Yes, I'd like to, my presentation is not quite as pretty as John's, but I would like to share with you a little bit about what's been going on in the past 40 days since the passage of our bond issue on November the 5th. First of all, there's been a lot going on from November 6th on, and I tried to put that together in just some bulleted fashions here for people to take, for our community and for the board to take a peek at. The first thing that we did in regards to January 6th is November 6th, even prior to this, was we began looking at visioning teams and putting building teams together. Gathering input from our administrations, from our parents, from our employees, as well as, there we go, as well as our architects and designers are continuing to, they did prior to the passage of the bond issue, but most definitely since thereafter, is making sure that they're in the buildings, they're looking at the situations. And they also have met with our building administrative team in our most recent DLT meeting. And you can see here SSOE is presenting this as a quick picture of one of those meetings with our administration. Most recently, we've begun meeting with our building visioning teams individually per building. And these building vision teams are made up of staff members, parent representation, representatives, as well as building administrators. Those discussions include a number of things, but they basically talk about facility issues that are currently impacting our teaching and learning in each school and in the classrooms. How are those facilities impacting teaching and learning? We're beginning to act as ambassadors to gather and share the information back to the people in their buildings. These teams also will be meeting a number of times during this design process. And even at the high school level, we're planning on smaller visioning teams. Our first larger visioning teams will happen right after the holidays, but also some smaller teams in regards to specific subject areas such as the arts and sciences and so on and so forth. Thank you, Susan. As we move on, some of the questions and some of the discussions, just some discussion points to get started in these discussions, are what are some of the restraints and the impediments of our facilities as they pertain to teaching and learning. What will enhance education in regards to our facilities? What can we do within those facilities that will enhance our teaching and learning? What are some of the classroom and building issues? What are some of the safety and environmental issues that we make sure that we are going to address? Some things that maybe we have not looked at on at the highest 10,000 foot level. What are some of our systems and our technology concerns? Even a couple of the meetings, just giving a quick example, when they were talking about some of the meeting, even at Nagel, where our newest building, where as far as you talk about systems, and we just talk about HVAC, how some rooms are cooler and warmer on any particular day, as opposed to the classroom right next door to them. And then moving on, these vision teams are also looking at how can our schools accommodate, how can our buildings help accommodate future learning. Okay. So then moving on, what we're then beginning to do is we're looking at our schematic designs. Using this information that is being collected during these visioning teams, begin to create some preliminary site and floor plans that will be taken back and shared with the teams. Some specific choices that that our teams can take a peek at. Also, then they're going to begin to design building and site improvements and preliminary construction and renovation schedules. Also, under schematic design is the completion of initial projects that will be scheduled for late spring and early this summer even. Okay, so then what's next? Well, right now, phase one. Phase one projects will be presented to the board sometime this early spring. And what those phase one projects will be, or we're calling them kind of standalone projects that we can get started on quickly. Construction of those after board approval and bidding processes should take place somewhere in late spring, early summer of this year. So our community will see movement beginning as early as the spring and summer on our facilities. Now, I call it phase two, but phase two is actually a number of different things that will be happening, but what this is the larger thing. Phase two planning and design will continue throughout our entire summer and into the early fall with for those building additions, some of the major systems repairs and renovations and additions that we're going to be doing, as well as our new elementary school. So current work that we're doing is our visioning meetings. We've begun to look at site surveying, doing some soil testing on some of our properties. Preliminary meetings with our local and county officials to gear up for our construction. We've begun to do those as well. Just last week we met with fire and safety, as well as some of our local and county engineers. As well as then we're also identifying phase one, those spring, summer projects to get off the ground. And then preliminary schematic design for those particular projects is what's currently happening today. And so, as I've shared with the board, communication is going to be key throughout this process. And our goal is to make sure that we communicate in a number of different venues, through email, through newsletters, through our website, through social media, even here at board meetings like tonight's presentation. And just keeping everyone in the loop in regards to what's happening, and as well as our local media. And different resident communications. We even have a plan in place for residents that are within a certain geographic area of our site, so that they'll know a little bit more in detail what's going on in regards to some of the things that are going on in their neighborhood. So with that, I just kind of wanted to give you a quick update of what we're doing, and I think we've, over the last few days, or a few weeks, excuse me, moving right along. So any questions?
Will this presentation be on the website?
Yes, it will. We'll clean it up a little bit, maybe. But,
when's our next Forest Hills Today coming out?
that's a great question. We are looking at here in the spring.
And we'll conclude updates in there as well?
Yes, there'll be updates in that as well, sure. I want to thank Julie, too. She has been very gracious, and she's attended our visioning meetings, and she and I kind of sat back, and we do a lot of listening. So thank you, Julie, for attending this as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had two things I wanted to ask. One of them, and actually the visioning was one of them. I know we had a lot of discussion about this prior to the bond issue. We had discussion, debate, whatever. I just want to make sure that after we have all these discussions, that there is some kind of and I don't want to get hung up in terminology, whether it's a strategy document, a vision document, something that is a overall, here's what the need is, especially as we identify what we're going to do for academics. And I would just like to see something, it doesn't have to be elaborate, but just some kind of a fundamental base document that says...
a tracker.
Beg your pardon?
A tracker or something, right?
Sure.
Whatever, but
Absolutely. And we'll have those for each of the buildings. And we will also, at the same time, and a question was asked, which is a great question, we're getting a lot of, as Julie and I talked about in a brief conversation, a lot of the same issues and the conversations are very similar at our buildings. And our goal is to provide equity in the classroom across our district. It doesn't mean equality, it means equity. But at the same time, we're not going to do at one building and put in certain types of equipment and furniture and do something totally different in another building. And so we'll be meeting together, even as teams, to determine as we move forward a little bit later on the process of how each of that's going to work as well. But yes, Randy, we're working on that.
The second thing you've actually already answered, it was the whole communication. It sounds like you guys have got that very well wired, so that's...
Well, we're working on it.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I hope so. I think that's the most difficult piece. We've struggled for as long as we've been a school board with effectively communicating with the community, and I think we did a really nice job in the bond campaign. We need to be certainly no less effective communicating with what we're doing today as we were with that campaign.
Actually, thanks to Erica, the work that she's doing, and the cabinet as well. We actually have a team that's going to be helping Erica along with people from public relations and other entities within our district that are working with her as well to help get this going, similar to the bond issue.
You know, I was thinking about this. You know, if you look at this huge construction project going on at Mercy, the new building that's going on there, and Kroger doing their huge renovation, and the used car lot is gone, and those houses along Wolf Angle are gone. It's like they've never been there. You can't even tell. They cleaned up those sites, so you're kind of creepy. But I mean, it's a sign of big things to come there that Kroger's doing. And I think it's Core Resources that's doing that development. They're right next to Johnny's Car Wash, and have the Dewey's as the anchor. And is it Victory that owns the shopping center?
Yes.
I'm sure there's plans for that Kmart location. I don't know what they are, but I hear rumors. And just the timing of this facilities plan and what we're doing with our buildings, and it's just, you know, the theme you used during the campaign was transformation, and you can see it going on throughout Anderson. It's Forest Hills. It's really exciting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Jackson?
I have one quick on the visionary on these teams. I'm assuming there's, I don't know how to exactly put it, someone who like knows the architect. Is the architect there? I mean,
Yes.
I know there's a lot of parents there, and I know as someone who you have ideas, but then to actually put them into action, you know, I don't know. You know,
It's a
various
really neat
things like-
process for us in that regard is, yes, the architect and our design teams are there. They're listening a lot. They help lead the discussion a little bit, or maybe to ask, well, how does that, you know, somebody might bring up a topic, and they say, well, how does that affect your teaching and learning? And so they get more and more ideas. And then that goal, their goal then is to take those notes and all that information back, and then they begin to put together schematically a variety of, we'll call them solutions, because we're not trying to solve anything right now in these teams, but a variety of different solutions that might address, or hopefully will address, the concerns that were brought up during the visioning. And then we'll bring that back, the architect and engineers will bring that back to them, and then we'll talk about those, and pretty soon it begins to focus as to, here's how we're going to do to address this specific concerns and needs for the facilities, and how that's going to improve teaching and learning.
Before, during the bond issue process and even afterwards, there were a lot of difference of opinions. And, you know, I feel an obligation to make sure that we continue to be transparent. Sometimes that's not easy, and sometimes it's airing internal things, but I mean, to be as transparent as possible as we go through this, just to honor the commitments we made to our community, that's all.
Not just transparent, but give
Just factual information.
give everybody the opportunity for input, whether it's teachers, staff, parents, students.
Students.
Excellent.
And it has been nice, and that students have been involved in this process, where the teachers will bring, well, this is what these students said would help impact their learning. So it's been good.
Yeah, the principals have been having meetings with students who are, and it's very
You hear about this at
cool.
home?
Oh, I have a daughter who has plans. Yeah, so it's, yeah, no, I know it's happening in all the buildings where they're coming in. I mean,
Right.
kids are bringing up and drawing things out and bringing them in, so. it's
Very
exciting.
good. All right, items 8.1 through 11.7 will be consent agenda items. Item 8.1, Anderson High School gymnastics team trip. Ms. Ryan?
For item 8.1, we have a motion to approve the overnight trip by our Anderson High School gymnastics team to travel to Tip City, Ohio on January 18th and 19th. They'll be competing in the Northmont Gymnastics Invitational. The cost is listed there as $80, which does cover the lodging and meals, and there are fundraising opportunities for this event.
Thank you. Item 8.2, the district emergency management plan. Mr. Eckert? Or is it considered we've
John,
already heard that? Or-
Do you want to share with that, John?
With the emergency management plan, that was to be in compliance with ORC and the State Attorney General. All plans needed to be updated and revised and submitted before December 31st.
And John, I'd like to thank John for his efforts in that. Actually, he submitted one of our plans yesterday that has already been accepted and approved, and the others have been submitted yet today, so we'll know by tomorrow. But this was just an informational agenda item for the board to know that has been completed.
Excellent, thank you. And item 8.3, the 2015-2016 district calendar.
For item 8.3, the district calendar, again, is an informational item. The proposed calendar has been submitted to the board to review. According to board policy 8210, we need to have a public hearing 30 days prior to the adoption. So we're proposing that we have the public hearing on the January 5th board meeting over the calendar, and then the calendar will be up for adoption at the February 23rd board meeting.
And I asked John to bring this in front of the board today, just because this will be a public hearing prior to the organizational meeting, but we want our community, and we'll be getting this information out on the website as well, to have the first blush at this calendar for the upcoming school year, so that during that 30-day period, if there are any tweaks and changes that we might need to make, we can do so. And John, you want to talk about that?
And we're also currently working actually on the 16-17 calendar that we hope to have to the board within the next few months for future planning.
Yeah, can you talk to us just briefly about why we would be looking at the 16-17 calendar as early as now?
So we
It's a little unusual, right?
Well, yes, and some districts do go 2 years out. But with this, due to the construction piece, we will need to be able to adjust the calendar, to possibly create longer summers, but still keeping the educational, integrity of our schedule. So by adjusting various vacation dates, limiting holiday dates, various things like that, we can give the construction, the architects and engineers opportunities to have longer summers for construction.
Yeah, so for those of you that have nothing better to do with your 2 a.m. than to watch this on reruns, the 2016-2017 calendar is likely to have a longer summer and less days off during the school year so that we can get a little bit more good weather time for our facilities construction. So it's going to be a little bit different calendar. Look for it so you can plan your summers and your school year accordingly.
Thank you.
Question, the 14-15 calendar has the same number of days, education days, as 15-16. I thought we were adding at least one day. Is that?
We added a professional development day is in there, not a student day.
Okay.
A teacher day is in this
Okay.
calendar. Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any questions? Nope. All right, 9.1, Human Resources Report. Ms. Carnahan?
Item 9.1, Human Resources Report. Item A, we have a leave of absence. Item B, which encompasses C, D, E, and F, would be appointments. On page 2, we have special services appointments, part-time for this school year. Item E, appointments and resignations of our consultants, coaches, and advisors. Going on to item F, substitute personnel. And you see there we have a few substitutes, and like Mr. Fruman said, for those of you listening at 2 a.m., this is a commercial message. We are in desperate need of substitutes across all areas. So call HR or email us, and we'll tell you how to help us out by becoming a substitute. Item G is the Memorandum of Understanding with our OPSI 177 unit. They did vote on that this evening. It is passed. Since the board meeting of last month, staffing in the district has decreased by 0.03 FTE, and it now stands at 778.65 FTE.
Thank you, Ms. Carnahan. Item 10.1, authorize the issuance of a request for proposal. Mr. Johnson?
Yes, item 10.1 is to authorize the issuance of for an RFP for an owner's rep. The motion is to authorize our office to take the necessary steps to issue an RFP for the owner's representative services related to the construction of the new Wilson and the building renovations at the other buildings as a result of the November 4th passed bond issue. So the Treasurer recommends the board approve the request to issue the RFP. The next item is a resolution of urgent necessity at Anderson High School. We had a serious leak of a hot water line that feeds the heating system of the southern portion of the building. We can't wait to go through normal bid process on this. We've actually already issued the purchase orders for this, but we've attached a resolution of urgent necessity for the replacement of this line, and we request that the resolution is approved as presented.
This is actually going to cost a little bit less than you had initially
Right.
estimated. Is that right?
When I first got information out to the board, it was truly a guess trying to base upon exactly what was going on. And we had to line up special piping and so forth and got that ordered, and it actually came in a little bit less. And plus, we're going to do a little bit of restoration work in-house to save some cost on that as well.
Thank you.
Question on the RFP. At some point, could we get maybe a presentation on what the management structure will look like as we go through the construction process? And to be clear, I'm not talking about your role. I mean the professional management, how that all works together and how they'll interact. And what controls we have, that type of thing.
We've talked to council as far as the delivery system. It might vary a little bit depending upon the type of project and so forth. And this is really going to be a team effort in the way we go, we go about all this. So I'm sure that as we put this together, it'll be something we bring to the board as far as what this is going to look like.
Yeah, I don't mean an hour-long presentation, but just an overview so
Sure.
we have a good understanding of where the controls are and that type of thing.
Yes.
Right.
And by the way, I support the owner's rep, so I don't misunderstand. I'm not
I
questioning
think
that.
it'd be good for
Yeah.
not only you, but everybody in the community to know.
But one of the things that we've been talking about, and I say we, I mean, in the weekly meetings I've had with Dr. Jackson, and I've talked to Rick about, is, you know, what the scope of work for even the owner's rep looks like. And I know that's something that Ray, Rick, and Dallas are all talking about, and they will fine tune and reach an agreement on before we hire anybody.
Right, yeah, attached as an administrative content was a sample of the ad that will actually run in tomorrow morning's paper, as well as the detailed RFP.
Before you sit down, I have a couple questions. Did I interrupt you, Jim?
No, no, no,
Okay.
please.
One's substantive a little bit and one's procedural, and I should have called you about the substantive one, but I don't think it's that hard. I always say that. Did the project scope summary, is that going to be part of
Yes.
what goes out?
Yes.
Unless I read through it, and unless I misread, or I missed something, under Mercer only, I think, there's a contingent project, or is that just where it is in the, is that contingent projects for all the schools where that's on that page?
Well,
Or is
there's
that
a
just for Mercer?
No, there's general finishes projects, and there's some contingency money based upon some of the scope they get into. The intent of including this wasn't to say, here's finally what's been given, but to give the respondents some idea of the scope of work that's going to be going on. They'll be filled in the process that we're just actually in the midst of conducting these visioning meetings.
Okay, but
So
that
this is
that
just to give
falls-
them a rough idea of what's
That falls
going
under
on.
Mercer though, that's why I was confused.
Okay.
Does that apply to all
Yes.
Yeah.
contingencies, it's just where it
Yeah.
is in the, okay.
Right.
I think I was just confused by
Okay.
where it was. And then the other thing, procedurally, it seems to me, and Jim and I talked about this, I think, maybe last week, that the owner's rep is in your bailiwick. Is that right, in Ray's bailiwick?
Yeah, and actually, this is something Dr. Jackson and I talked about, was it last Wednesday? Right now, I would say, and Rick, Ray, Dallas, correct me if I'm wrong, what they're all working together on is getting the processes and the positions in place, including this owner's rep, and then the project's going to start, and Dallas, as the superintendent of the district, will be running the district as he always does, and Ray, as the director of operations, would be the point person, I suppose the primary contact for the owner's rep.
Well, I think it's good business sense to have the primary, a primary report for everybody. I think it's good business sense. Primary report of the architect to one person, and primary report of the owner's rep to another person. We don't have a construction manager, so I mean, I think that just makes good business sense. And of course, they'll talk all the time. Does that make sense?
I don't know. I don't know the process well enough to tell you if that makes sense
I've
to me.
just seen enough in the city to be a little bit knowledgeable.
I
So-
assume that they'll talk about that, and they'll make the recommendations to us what the proper procedure is.
Yeah,
that's why I'd like,
the primary report of the architect, the engineers, as well as the owner's rep and actually the construction companies that will be doing the work as well, will all be working together. And that primary report will go to Ray, which he and I will be meeting together in these particular meetings as well. So it's not one reports to one and someone else reports
Right. I
to
mean,
another. It's
the
all,
lines aren't-
yeah, there's no, right.
Are solid, I get that, it's fluid.
Yeah.
that's why I'd like to see some kind of a presentation, just so we do have some idea of how all this fits together. And again, what I'm interested in is where the points of control are.
Especially with 9 buildings.
Well, and I actually met with Joe last week, and we kind of talked a little bit about kind of the scope of the owner's rep and so forth, and he had some questions, and we kind of clarified that, and I've worked closely with Bricker and Eckler on putting this together. And
You know what would be
relied heavily on
helpful?
that.
To Randy's point, you know, I'm talking with Dallas every week, and I know I've picked up the phone and I've talked to you, Rick, and, you know, maybe if we just, at the next, sometime in January, maybe, depending on what else is on the agenda, we could get that
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I was
presentation that
hoping
Randy's
for.
talking about.
Yeah, my hope is actually, with a little bit of luck, is to bring a contract for the owner's rep to the January board meeting, because you really want to get them on board, because there's going to be opportunities as we get into the design part to have that level of expertise representing the district.
I know what I'd be interested in is, not just when we get to the contract, but before we're being asked to approve that contract, is the scope of work for the owner's rep.
Right.
Because that, that can be anything from here to here, and...
Well, as Dallas and I were talking today, I think that there might be, I'm just going to use a number for illustration, 15 different items that an owner's rep can do. We may focus in on 5 of those, but no, we've got 10 on the shelf that we may access at some point in time for something specific. So,
Right.
Yeah.
I know there's a cost to everything, and we want to be cost-effective,
Right.
while at the same time being prudent and making sure we've got the right person overseeing
Right.
things for the district.
Sure.
So, yeah, and I know you guys know that.
Well, yeah, and I was going to add that, just what we talked about today. I mean, that's the board and the district's advocate at the table. They don't
Right.
serve any other master, so it's important to have, I think it makes everybody better. The scope will dictate, what that means, and obviously, some of the paybacks or whatnot.
It'll ultimately save us money in the
Yeah, I
end.
mean, I think that would be, the scope of work will dictate a lot of that. I think it's getting another construction set of eyes on things that the three of us are not in
Right.
our bailiwick to
Yeah,
take
I
care of.
think the biggest value was Rick and I drove up for just one day at Capitol Conference, and virtually the entire time we were there, every conversation was dealing on this topic, and wanted to pick the brains of the people in other districts who've been through this process and what worked, what didn't work, and that type of thing.
I think I mentioned this last meeting. I spoke with fellow board members, not people who were trying to sell us a program, but board members who went on at length about how it was the right thing, it saved the district many times more than what the cost of the owner's rep was. One of the things that I will be interested in, I was going to ask you off the side, but since we got into this conversation, again, points of control, but also accountability for delivery and accountability for budget. Who is accountable for delivering a project on budget, those type of things. Don't need to talk about it now, but that's the kind of thing I'd like to make sure
Well, I think we all are.
understand.
I think just a quick, no, seriously, all
agree.
kidding aside, I think we all are, and I think that's part of the team process in looking at
Ultimately,
that.
we
in the bid
are.
process.
Well, I know that, and I want to know who we hold accountable.
Well, actually, when it comes to the bidding process, after those bids have been determined, after the scope of the work has been determined, the project's been put out for bid, and then the appropriate entities have been selected to do the work, they are ultimately held responsible for the budget.
Well, and that's one of the things when we have
guaranteed.
attorney
Exactly.
reviewing the contracts, we want to know what's within the scope of work of those individual subcontracts and, know where they're going to
Exactly.
be trying to force change orders on us, which,
Well, I mean,
frankly,
I
we need
look
to
back
make
and
sure
I had
it's limited.
Yeah, I had somebody ask me about this a few days ago, and I know it's a smaller scale, but, we've talked at past board meetings about over, the last 10, 12, 15 years that, our history of change orders is about 0.5%, which we feel really good about. But that's because we as a team, and that's everybody that's a part of it, does their homework going forward on this. And we look at it as that way, is that the team is, all of us. It's the Bob Vanderwoods of the world, it's the design people, and it's the experts, and it's being out there and being out in the field and knowing when something first comes up, my mantra, and I get kidded about it at every single construction meeting, I don't like surprises. Don't like them in any aspect of my life. I don't like surprising people. I don't like to be surprised. And I mean that. The point is they get to know, okay, when something comes up, let's get all the eyes out here so they see through it and we talk through it. That's all part of the team approach, and I see this being very much the same way.
Well, I think that's what we're all saying, too.
Yeah.
We want the owner's rep to be helping us. We don't want to be surprised.
Yep.
And there's no such thing
I
as
don't
going
wanna
over
walk up here
budget,
with a
because we
surprise.
only have so much
Right.
money.
Yeah, so, okay.
Excellent. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much, Ray. Where were we? Item 11.1, resolution designating Fifth Third Securities as our investment firm. Mr. Tepfer?
This is a minor change to the October agenda. as we clarified exactly what Fifth Third Securities will do, they will actually be investing bond proceeds versus giving advice to investing bond proceeds. So that's what necessitated the resolution in 11.1. So we're recommending the board adopt the resolution naming Fifth Third Securities as the investment firm. And that scope of work is for the bond proceeds only. That's their scope of work. Item 11.2, this is the second half of the self-funded workers' compensation insurance piece. Required pieces having excess workers' compensation coverage. We're asking the board to approve State National Insurance Company through Barry Insurance Group. I said I kind of gave you an outline of the increases and the monthly charges. This policy starts paying claims at $450,000. That's kind of our pooling point. Just recommend the board approve the excess workers' comp with State National through Barry Insurance. This would be effective for January 1, 15 through January 1 of 16 with a renewal premium of $40,454. And item 11.3 is an annual item. We'll recommend the board approve custom designed benefits for the flexible benefits summary plan description as presented, as we've used custom design since the FY08 year. 4 and 5 really relate to OSBA. Item 11.4 is the legal assistance fund. The 2015 fee is the same as it's been since 1998, all of $250, but it does allow us to make phone calls and participate in statewide decisions that affect schools. A few phone calls, and obviously that pays the fee, which we use every year. And item 11.5, we are requesting to renew the annual membership January 15 through January 15 through December 15 in the Ohio School Boards Association. Annual fee of $71.04, which is a 2.6% reduction. But this allows us to really participate in all the workshops, the labor relations, all their endorsed programs, and really stay in touch with what's happening educationally as well as financially and every other way in between. And a great resource. You kind of caps that at the Capitol Conference, but there's a lot more to it than that. It's every day, every week, there's contact there. So I recommend the board approve the renewal of our annual membership.
Rick, can I interrupt you?
You sure can.
I forgot to mention this ahead of time. I'm either going to have to abstain on this consent agenda or have you carve these two out because I'm not allowed to vote on something where I'm a trustee or an officer.
We'll take both those out.
Okay.
We'll take those out, 11.5 and 11.4. But it's recommended the board approve the renewal of the OSBA in the amount of $7,104. 11.6 is an updated 5-year forecast. Not required to be done at this time. I think it's important personally to do it when we're doing our tax budget. Obviously, they're intertwined. It's a document that's part of the tax budget, and obviously if things have changed since October, it's important to update that. So we've updated the 5-year forecast and the assumptions, and that's what's going to drive the tax budget and so forth. I gave the board an outline of the items that have changed. I think the high level is with these changes, we show positive cash balance through fiscal year 18, small negative balance in 19. We believe that's, with under expenditures and just some of our assumptions that with the state and some of the local funding that may be covered as well. But bottom line is the March 2012 $3.9 million operating levy was projected to last 3 years. That was the commitment that we made to the community. This forecast just about doubles that, at least 5. It's looking at the 6 years. Those 6 years were the 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and possibly the 19. So a good story there, and obviously we'll continue to monitor that. The assumptions really drive that. If anything happens at the state, anything above flat, it's going to be a positive story. That's been a flat number for a while. We did get some increases the last biennium, so if there's another increase, that will significantly help all the way out the forecast. I also kind of outlined a little bit of how the bond impacts the forecast. We had some things in the bond, like the transfer to the PI fund. We did not have projections in it for staffing of full-day kindergarten, which is out a little bit, as well as some of the impacts of utilities, and so we will continue to monitor those, and there will be more of that into the next forecast. But the items we knew and were comfortable with were adjusted, and that's what's in the forecast in item 11.6. So recommend the board approve the forecast and assumptions as presented. And finally, 11.7, standard donations, $13,416.60. We have a large donation from the Sherwood PTA Media Center Furniture, over $11,000. I'm sure that was, is Dan? Dan Sherwood, I signed back there. The Sherwood folks, I'm sure, appreciate that donation from their PTA. Statement of board accounts, all of our accounts are in good condition. We have one negative. We have a pay request outstanding, which covers that. Items C, D, and E are our revenue and expenditure snapshots through 11/30. All of those are in line. Collections are a little bit lower, which we've updated the 5-year forecast to reflect. Item F, amount to bank reconciliation. Item G, changed that a little bit this time. I'm actually giving you the investment portfolio, which I think is a better snapshot of what we have. Interest earnings will come as those securities mature, as opposed to showing nothing because we're in the middle of an investment cycle. So the portfolio is the item G. Item H, we show the amendments to the appropriation. No change in the general fund, but we did adjust 6 other funds. I is we're asking the board to approve the payment of Board of Education meeting expenses, board service fund expenses. And J, we're asking the board for approval of 2 new student activity funds. One update, the tax budget is, as required, on display today on our website as well as in my office. Did not have anybody show up today to view it, but it is on display. And it's the one that will be taken to the, for approval at the January 5th organizational meeting. So as recommended, let's pull out
11.4 and 11.5.
11.4 and 11.5, and also there's the two informational items are not approvals; they were informational only. I think it was 8.2 and 8.3, but we recommended the board approve 8.1 through 11.7, less the 2 OSBA items 11.4 and 11.5 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Discussion.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, it's not a question. The 5-year forecast is a comment. Obviously, with the bond issue passing, that's a positive story. The only, and I'm aligned to all your assumptions that you stated. I think the one that we don't know is whether state funding will be flat. I don't expect them to change the rate. What I think is the bigger concern, which is more of a question, is the next time they change the formula. And that could have a dramatic impact on us, highly unlikely positive, but possibly negative. And it's one of those things where there are 614 school districts, and who knows where we fall in the lineup if they change the formula yet again. But anyway.
Well, I think, since you mentioned, I mean, the other one is what's on the table with regard to, I'm going to get it wrong, Natasha, but the credit.
Oh.
College Credit Plus.
Yeah.
So that animal is yet to be tamed right now. It's and as to what it means educationally, I'm sure they're pulling their hair out, because financially I have no clue what it's going to do to us. So potentially, as written and revising by the day, we get new frequently asked questions that continually.
I had a conversation with the chair of the House Education Committee and the Senate Education Committee, and both of them recognized that that's actually unfair the way it's written right now, although at face value it looks like it's, protecting disadvantaged students. And of course, I said, let us figure out the plan. They don't want us to be able to, somebody correct me if I get this wrong, but they don't want us to be able to charge for the students or their families for college credit, even though it costs us money to deliver that. Is that, Dallas, can you?
Yeah, anything that has to do with the additional college credit all the way from 7th grade through the 12th grade, any high school credits that can also be deemed as a the dual credit will be totally assumed by the school district.
We can't pass on any of the cost to that, even though it's a good program, it's a cost savings for the parents.
We've offered in the past dual credit opportunities for children, which we're very proud of, and we've been a leader in the area of doing that. There's usually a negotiated fee with the university. It's usually been the University of Cincinnati. It's been a really, really reasonable fee for the kids to get that credit. And if they're on a free program, we've been able to work with them. Free and reduced lunch programs, we're able to work with them in that regard. But this kind of goes well above and beyond that. It expands the dual credit opportunities for students in a number of different areas, all the way down through the 7th grade.
But realistically, the unintended consequences, the districts can't afford to offer the programs anymore.
We may be
constrained.
Constrained.
Yeah.
Excuse me, constrained.
So it's not that we can't offer them, we'll be required to offer some.
So hopefully some correction will occur there,
Yeah,
but that's another good point.
And that's why, when Rick and I sat down, we talk about this, we talk about such things as that, how that will impact our budget going forward. We talk about the amount of money that's being, moved from our budgets through, the students that are leaving our district to attend charter schools. We talk about the other different programs that have been mandated upon us, and it gets us more and more and more and more, and we don't know what's coming in the future. And that's the dilemma that we run into.
And there are lots of things to work out with it. We're to go live on February. We have to be putting things in the course guide. And there's everything under the sun that still needs to be decided. And that's our timeline. So we have to right now that we have requirements.
That's been par for the course out of Columbus here for the last couple of years, but anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
But all in all, still looks very positive.
No, I think, get my investment piece in here. Well, in the past, we've had it's Star Bank, that was it, at 0.00001% in our $50 that we got. Star Ohio, okay. And now, looking at this list that this new, we've had this come up over the last couple of months, and we got this investment management company coming in, and now we go everywhere from American Express Bank, Discover Bank, and then I see, Bank of India on here, and so broaden our.
And you can see obviously the investments in the 2 to 3 plus year range. It's obviously much better than short term and where we were at, and obviously we'll continue to monitor that. So we wanted to diversify as much as we could.
And this is all done within the realms of what we're allowed to do.
Correct.
That's good.
Now
you want to make.
Now you ask.
We can always make changes if we need to.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Mr. Teffer?
Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes. And then we need to consider separately items 11.4 and 11.5. We have a motion.
Move to approve item 11.4.
And 11.5?
Can I do them both at the same time?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, 11.5.
Second.
Mr. Teffer?
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Abstain.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes. All right, 12.1 is the Business Advisory Committee report. Mr. Teffer?
Yeah, we met on 12/1. I had a good group, 8 or 10 people there. Dr. Heiss was able to join us. Talked about our investment portfolio, financial audit. Both those were in motion at the time. Had a little bit of discussion with the different business owners about healthcare reform and the impact that that's had on us, the district, as well as some of the small business owners. Talked about the Board of Revisions process and the impact when that happens on the district, when people, residents, whether residential or commercial, challenge their property values. And I think we ended with the second half of the discussion really was the bond issue, the financing, and how we were going to get our arms around different ways to move forward with selling the bonds and actually projecting out the debt over 32 and a half years. I don't know if you want to add to.
Yeah, he's been asking us to come to those meetings, and it was very enlightening. It was a great group of people, a lot of small business owners from Newtown, Anderson, with a wide variety of experience, which I was very impressed with. It was
I learned a lot. Yep.
Item 12.2 is the Forest Hills Foundation for Education report. There was a board meeting on December 10th of 2014. The work for the Forest Hills 5K has begun. The clubs at all the schools are getting to work. There is discussion of the golf outing, and while a date's not yet been set, the intent is actually to grow that golf outing considerably, so look for more news on that. The Soarway for Success was a huge success. I know a lot of people in the room were at that function. Really, it was a wonderful function. The Marinicks, Joe and Lorraine Marinick, hosted the event. Just a beautiful home, and we're so incredibly gracious to have sponsored us. We hope they'll be willing to have us again. It was a great event, and hopefully it can be repeated. Destination Imagination is getting underway. The regional tournament is going to be at Nagel this year on March 14th. I understand it was there last year. That is the regional tournament, not just locally, but throughout the entire region. I understand it is just a huge event. I'm told that Ray Johnson was a little bit surprised at how big it was last year.
It's actually the host site of the state of Kentucky as well.
It's going to be again this year. Everybody's encouraged to attend. I'm told. I've not actually seen it, and I'm looking forward to it this year. But we can use volunteers, so please inquire of Dee Stone about how you might get involved. ACT, SAT prep sessions are continuing. I think the next session's on January 10th of 2015, and they're looking to increase the depth and actually offer a little bit more substance in some of the preparation, so look for that. There are new promotional materials for the Forest Hills Foundation, and I have that, and really nice inserts, so they'll be using that to continue to spread the word of the foundation and hopefully grow their funds so they can offer more services to the district and the district's students. And they are also looking at scheduling a board retreat, and that would probably be in early 2015. Legislative liaison report, item 12.3.
Actually, before I go to that, I want to go back to something that you have already mentioned, but I simply want to also thank everybody who attended the soiree. That was something that, quite frankly, I've wanted to see for 10 years. And also want to thank Dee Stone in particular. I know you had a committee. I know there were a lot of people, and it's dangerous anytime you point out one person, but I did want to recognize Dee for helping make that happen. Anyway. On to the legislative report. I have given you, in the interest of time, a written summary, and that was lifted, quite frankly, from an OSBA document that our lobbyists put together. Some of the key activity, quite frankly, these impact us, but not significantly. I'll give you one example. A legislator in the House was recommending a bill that would require 1/2 unit of world history in high school social studies curriculum, and I understand that we actually already have that. A lot of times, this is a really good example where the state may have minimum standards, but quite usually Forest Hills exceeds those standards, and so this is an example of where a law like this would actually, I guess, have no impact on us unless they prescribe what year it has to be delivered and conflicts with ours or something like that. But anyway, the other thing, well, you can see there are a few others in the written report, but I think the most important one is actually the Common Core repeal effort. Common Core is a very complex issue, a lot of tentacles. There are a lot of issues that do impact our school. I think there are a lot of misnomers out there, but there were efforts made to get it attached to some bills, and in Ohio you can't actually do that. So, but I would expect some kind of an effort to have House Bill 597 passed again before the year is over. It was brought to my attention that there is activity in the federal level in the executive branch to start to creep into taking over or impacting Common Core, which would have the effect of a federal, I don't want to use the term takeover, but connection to curriculum. And I do have a concern with that. On the other hand, when it comes to the local level, we are where we are with Common Core, and our people have invested a lot of time and money, and I think it would be difficult to have the rug pulled out from underneath us at this point as I sit here and look at our directors who have invested a lot in this. So it's clearly something that is going to impact us, and I just hope that the legislature comes up with a solution that minimizes the impact on local school districts where we can keep our local control, but whatever can be done to minimize the impact of the federal government on curriculum in various states is what's needed. Again, I'm sure that could open up a couple hours worth of discussion, but I simply wanted to summarize where the state was at this point.
Isn't the Senate done for the year?
I think they're still in session this week.
Okay.
I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure they are, because there's still some unfinished business. I may be wrong, but I thought that they were still in session.
You would know better than me. All right, anything else? Questions for Randy? Policy Committee report. Julie or Randy?
We are here for the second reading of the following policies as indicated in 12.4. And I guess, Dallas, you want to speak?
Absolutely.
I guess you recommend?
Well, actually, yeah. The policies are four policies that basically are required for us. Since we are going self-funded, our group health plans, these are policies that coincide with that. They've been vetted through the policy committee, and this is the second time they've been in front of the board.
These were policies that are basically required, as I recall from the policy committee meeting, and we had a few modest choices in there, but essentially they're just tailored to our district, so it's basically required.
All right, so this is something we need to vote on, though, right?
Do you want a motion?
I believe so.
I'll move that we adopt the policies in 12.4.
Second.
Mr. Teffer?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes. 12.5, the Saga report. I attended the Saga meeting on December 9th, 2014, held at the Anderson Center. There was a discussion of the Youth Summit, which took place, I don't actually have the date, but it was very well attended. 69 students from Anderson High School, Turpin High School, McNicholas, Miami Valley. They broke up into small groups, and they had a lot of volunteers, and they had videos that they prepared, and they were supposed to send me one that I was going to share with the board, and somebody deleted the videos. So they weren't able to share it with us. They were so excited about what they did that they're going to try to get one of these groups to do their video again so they can share it with us in January. So I think it's about 45 minutes long. No, I'm just kidding. It's about 2 minutes long.
3 minutes.
And it's about 2 minutes long, so if they put it together, we'll share that with the board in January. And then the other discussion they had was about the program that they're putting together. Actually, I think it's a program that they're sponsoring. It's called Marketing Hidden in Plain Sight. And it's a presentation where they have a mocked-up bedroom for children. And then they have these people that know what you're looking for, and they come in and they explain to the parents attending the program what in the bedroom is drug or alcohol paraphernalia, and where they hide it, and how to spot it. It's supposedly a great program, and the discussion that Saga was having at the meeting was, one, how to communicate to our community the availability of this program and get people to recognize its value and actually attend. They talked about who the right market is and the belief is, and I'm sure a lot of the teachers here in the room could tell us that the ones that are most influenced by something like that, at least at the prevention level, are grades 7 through 10. So they'd love to get the parents in for the children grades 7 to 10. The concern is once you get to grades 11 and 12, you're not at the prevention stage, but you're maybe at the treatment stage. So it was an interesting discussion. It sounds like a great program. The trick is for them to figure out how to get the message out to parents and make them understand the value and actually attend the program, and they're working on that. Item 13.1 is an executive session. We do not have an executive session this evening. Our next meeting will be the organizational meeting on January 5th, 2015 at 7 a.m. And the next, well, I guess we don't announce that yet because it's not set, or is it set at the organizational meeting?
We actually set those at the organizational meeting. We can give you a tentative.
Tentative. The next tentative meeting is, I don't know.
126.
January 26th,
Right.
2015, 7 p.m. at the Anderson Center, not here. But that's just tentative. Those will be confirmed at the organizational meeting on January 5th at 7 a.m., and we'll see you all here at 7 a.m. on January 5th.
Actually, prior to that, or right before the meeting on the 5th, we'll have a budget hearing as well as a calendar hearing that we talked about
Oh, right, the
tonight.
calendar hearing.
So we'll have both those. Take just a few minutes, and then we'll go ahead with the organizational meeting.
All right. This is the last meeting of the year. Happy holidays to everybody. It's been a great year. Happy New Year, and we'll see you next year. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Teffer?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Mr. Hemmelgarn?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes. Thank you all for coming.